listed at the top of this lunch. This is Dallas's first jury improvement lunch. We have had two now in Houston. Whether this and the idea, and after the first one in Houston, we sent a monkey survey to everyone to see what they want to do again, and how we can improve it. And the first survey we got back, it was unanimous that people really want to do it again. In Houston, we hit on the idea of quarterly, we can do it here quarterly, annually, monthly, like that. Once these things can go in, the idea is if you think they're worthwhile, and we can send you a monkey survey after this completed, get back to it, then we will leave it in the hands of people in Dallas to keep this tradition going. The Civil Jury Project was established at NYU Law School last fall. It is the only academic center in the country devoted to studying the civil jury. Why did our founders think juries were so important that the jury is mentioned 5 times in our founding documents? It's the only right that gets mentioned that many times. And the academics who have studied the history of the jury say that our founding fathers thought that the only way to assure the protection of the other rights, the right to free speech, the right to be free of unreasonable searches and seizures, the right to bear arms, the only way to protect those rights was to put the average citizen in the hands of a cross-section of the community, not of the executive or the monarch or the judges appointed by the executive or the monarch. And so the jury has been, since the beginning of our country, 240 years ago, so much a part of the architecture of our justice system that there's not a courthouse in this country that doesn't have a jury box. So the question is, and that's clear, it's not even controversial. And the other thing that's clear is jury trials in this country, indeed all civil trials, are vanishing. They will not become extinct, I don't think, but they'll be like a California condor. There won't be many more. And the question for lawyers and citizens and people who serve on juries is this a good thing or a bad thing? If it's a bad thing, if we're worried about, we think juries are important, then we have to do something to figure out how we can improve the process. We have to ask the question, well, why are they vanishing? And what can be done to reverse the trend? And so that's essentially, this slide back up, what the Civil Jury Project is doing. In any event, that's what our project is up to. And we, as I say, if this lunch works, we intend to encourage the local bar associations in major metropolitan areas around the country to, you fix it with facts, to duplicate it. If you are here studying jury innovations, we're doing empirical studies in the Civil Jury Project. We have 165 judicial advisors around the country, 65 academics, law professors that study the jury, and a group of jury consultant advisors also. Today, we want to focus on those citizens who interrupt their lives, often at great financial sacrifice, to help their fellow citizens settle disputes. And today we are together to honor those who have recently served on civil juries in Dallas. And we are here to ask them one more favor, and that is to share with us what they have learned so that we, the bench and the bar, can figure out how to improve the system. There are clearly alternate ways of resolving disputes, the most prominent of which is private arbitration using private judges hired by one or both parties. But there is nothing other than a jury that exposes ordinary citizens to how our legal system works, requiring people to come together and play an important role working with across the demography of our cross-section of citizens of trying to resolve problems, factual issues that resolved. We have today launched social media, and to my knowledge, our knowledge, this is the third launch in the country like this. We haven't had two years, this is the third. But there's no organized way of asking people who serve on juries what they thought of the service. Did they like it? Could it be improved? How would it improve? So that's what we're trying to do, because I think the people that are involved in the civil jury project, and I think most of the judges that I've talked to in the country, think that people who actually serve on juries, like those who are here today, over 40 jurors here today, love the experience and would like to do it again. We do know for sure there has been empirical evidence that there's a high correlation between serving on a jury and performing other civic duties like voting. People who serve on a jury are much more likely to vote than those who have not served on a jury. And this is studies that we are going to try to publicize and do some more of. But in any event, we need to get the discussion going at our website and reach us. I'm the executive director here in the back of the room. Caitlin, will you raise your hand? And Richard Jolly is over here. Caitlin's the administrative assistant. And Richard Jolly, both at NYU School of Law, is our research fellow. So if you have any questions, as you go out, chat with them. I would like now to introduce all of the judges who came. Judge, and if you could stand, and I'll call your name, and just hold your applause as we're with these panel. Judge Carl Ginsburg, Judge Martin Hoffman, Judge David Horan, Judge Barbara Lynn, Judge Tanya Parker, Judge Stacy Williams, Judge Renee Harris Harvard. Right, okay. I'm getting old, it's tall. It's tall. Judge Lansing is here. Judge Ferguson is a walk-in. And Judge Fitzwater is here. Fitzwater, I don't even know. There he is back here. Do we have any other judges that I have
Another walk-in, Judge Bolton.
Thank you for coming. And I'd like all the people, and the judges have red name badges, so have the jurors are marked as such. All the jurors that came today, please rise. And now I'd like to ask Judge Lynn, can you come up and say a few words, or Judge Parker, if you come up here too, and Judge Hoffman, I do want you to say a few words, because you were pushed this, having this, and I'm grateful for you getting all the jurors out.
Well, hi everyone. Welcome. For our jurors who are here, we're delighted to see you and thank you in a public way. It's a funny coincidence that today I had what I like to call my jury roundup. So about every 4 or 5 years, I have a disappointing experience where I have a lot of people who don't show up for jury duty. The last time this happened, a couple of weeks ago, I was short of jurors in a criminal case. So I bring people down for a little chat. And neither of us enjoy the chat. But it gives me an opportunity to remind them of how important the work that those of you who serve perform. When I had the joy and privilege of naturalizing new citizens, I talk to them about the rights and opportunities that are presented to all of us as citizens. And I ask them to think of jury service as one of those, because it is unique in all the world for regular folks, most of whom do not have a law degree, to be able to sit in judgment in an important matter and decide important issues of civil and criminal responsibility. That is really the essence of our democracy. And I was doing that job on September 11th, 2001. And I gave my jurors the opportunity to go home for the day if they chose to, and all of them decided to stay in place because they recognized that the greatest response to an act that was intended to undermine our democracy was to support our democracy. And that's what all of you who are jurors did then and will, if you are called again, do again. So we thank all of you very much, and we ask all of you to pass on to your neighbors how important jury service is and how much we appreciate all of you supporting it as an institution. As Steve says, it is vanishing. We don't want it to vanish. We want to bring it back from the near extinction and support it fully with all of our efforts. And all of you can do that by talking to your friends and neighbors about how important it is. So we honor all of you and thank you very much for being here.
Judge Lynn, for those of you who don't know, I thought she needed no introduction. She does need no introduction to judges and lawyers. As the chief judge of federal judges here, federal courts here, and now the chief judge of the state courts is Judge Parker.
Good afternoon. I am Judge Tanya Parker, and I am the presiding judge for the civil district courts here at the state courthouse. I want to acknowledge my colleague, Judge Bonnie Goldstein, who's here, who is our presiding judge over jury services. Judge Goldstein, if you'll stand again. Judge Goldstein, as I mentioned, is our presiding judge over jury services, and she was actually going to be out of town, and that's how I ended up here, and she decided to reroute her plans so that she could be here today to be a part of this experience. Thank you, Judge Goldstein, for being here. Bench and all of the judges over at the Georgetown Courthouse, I want to thank you all for being here. We very much appreciate the time that you're giving us today, particularly since you've already given us so much time in your jury service. We are overjoyed by this turnout. I think this is beyond what we ever expected in terms of a turnout. It's wonderful to have so many jurors, judges, and lawyers who are interested in making our system better by participating today in this luncheon and, more importantly, in the discussion that we're going to have. On occasion, my colleagues and I get a chance to try cases without a jury, where as judges we have to sit and decide both the facts and the law, and in those instances we get a bird's eye view of just how difficult it is, the work that jurors have to do. In particular, the tough part is trying to discern the credibility of the evidence, the testimony, the documents that are put in front of you. You have no idea what really happened, and your job there as jurors is to decide, based on the burden of proof that has to be carried, what you believe about what happened between the parties. And when you care and you're trying to get it right, that is tough work, and we're very grateful to you all for doing it. We trust that a jury that is made up of 6 or 12 members from a cross-section of our community is going to bring forward the most just decisions, and we are confident in that system. That's the reason we do the work that we do. We believe that it brings about a just result because it is bringing about so many different perspectives from members of our community to sit and evaluate what happened between their peers and members of their community. And so we're grateful to you all. There was a comedian who made a statement some time ago, and I really feel that his statement was a joke, but it was speaking to the unfailing insight and judgment of juries. And what he said was, he was married by a judge and he should have asked for a jury. Again, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you. We're grateful to you for the insight and judgment you offered us at the time of your service, and we look forward to getting more insights from you today. Thank you.
And now my buddy who helped me cook this up, Martin Hoffman, a state court judge. We were the ones who had breakfast somewhere near here.
Exactly.
And we came up with this idea. And that's when it began early this summer.
And look at this. This is great. I want to thank, first off, the Civil Jury Trial Project at NYU. I'm a member of the Dallas Bar Board of Directors, involved in a lot of the different local bar associations. But it wasn't until Steve came to us with this idea that I think is such a great idea, and it's exemplified by all the people here today, that how much the bar here really cares about the jury trial system. And so I want to thank each of you for coming here today. Also, as many of you know, I'm kind of competitive, and I love Dallas. I want to point out that for the first, I'm going to get in trouble from Steve probably, but the first luncheon that the Houston group had only had 9 jurors here and 100 lawyers. We have twice that many lawyers and 4 times that many jurors. So let's give a big round of applause to Dallas. And finally, this is only the beginning. What this has really sparked with the judiciary and under the leadership of Judge Goldstein is a whole new look at how do we make the experience better for jurors. And she's going to lead a project where we're looking at maybe installing Wi-Fi in the central jury room. Possibly, how many jurors would think that would have been a good idea for the central jury room? All right, I think that's all of them. And how many of you would like charging stations for your cell phones and other electronic devices? It's something the criminal courts, the civil courts don't have. So under Judge Goldstein's leadership, she's going to see if we can get that done over the next fiscal year. But none of that discussion wouldn't even started if it had not been for the Civil Jury Trial Project. So let's give Mr. Sussman a big round of applause, and thank you so much.
Thank you. So we have actually, you're right, the first time in Houston we had 9 jurors, then we did it again in Houston, we had 23, we have over 40 today. It was too many jurors to have in a single panel, so we're having 2 panels. With the first panel, please come up now. 10 people who are 11 people who have volunteered, your names are up here, and we will ask, I'm going to be helped with this by Lisa Blue, who is a jury consultant advisor to the Civil Jury Project, and she's going to kind of help me take the laboring oar, I hope, on moderating this because it's a big panel. And when they are done, after about 20 minutes, we will get the next panel up. Some of you are not going to have a chance to talk today because we have too many people here. Please get in touch with us. We want to hear from you. Those jurors who did not talk, you use this to contact us. We need to be contacted, and I'll put that up again. So will everyone, we have the first panel up. Lisa, you want to begin it? Richard? Yeah, put it up again. Thank you.
So is this on?
Yeah, whatever you got, go with.
As you're sitting down, I do want to do a big shout out. Some of you may not know, this is
not
the
on.
brainchild of Steve Sussman. Steve, you put your heart and so much of your money. And as a matter of fact, Steve Sussman told me 50% of his time is now devoted to this wonderful jury project. So again, Steve Sussman, thank you for creating this wonderful opportunity. Hello, everybody. I'm Lisa Blue. I'm a jury consultant and a trial lawyer, and I'm blessed every day with love what I do. And here's the rules. There is no way to give a right or wrong answer. All these people showed up for you. And so here's what I'm asking. I want to make sure everybody gets to speak.
The mic is turned off.
Lisa, we can't hear you.
Mic's turned off.
It's not on. Okay, it's on now. So I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to speak. And here's the beginning question. We're all here to learn how we can do a better job. There's got to be something that you thought about, wow, I wish, fill in the blank, or I did not particularly like, or I really liked X, Y, and Z. So can I have some kind ex-juror, and again, thank you so much for showing up, that wants to share with us how we can do a better job? Who wants to be my first? Oh, I'd be like a judge. I'll have to call on you. Yes, Denicia.
Well, I like what Judge Hoffman had to say as far as the Wi-Fi.
Can everybody hear her? Okay, you got to put your mouth really up there. Okay.
All I
They can't hear.
We need the mics on.
Now, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. I like what Judge Hoffman had to say as far as the Wi-Fi, you know, because it gets tiresome just sitting in the room waiting to be called back into the courtroom. And I also want to say I enjoyed the fact that when I served on a jury trial, he explained everything up front, you know, because a lot of people don't know exactly what the terms mean, but he did a great job of explaining everything.
Okay, great. So explanation from the judge about everything, what's going to happen, et cetera?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You want to go next, Roseanne? No, you're going to have to really speak in that mic.
Everyone,
so-
when you talk, grab one of those mics. Unfortunately, they didn't have a mic for everyone sitting on the panel. So when you want to talk, grab a mic and talk right into it.
Just on anything?
Anything that's in your heart.
Okay, I appreciated the fact when I got to the courthouse that everybody was very, very polite and appreciative of us showing up.
And how did people make you feel appreciated?
They just acknowledged us in a very friendly way, and I really appreciated that.
Okay, great, thank you. Yes. Ms. Stevens.
I was in Judge Lynn's courtroom, and her bailiff was exceptional. He really took great care of us. That was wonderful. An improvement I would suggest when we went into the central jury room, the video that we were shown prior to being sworn in as jurors was very dated.
And is there, as you watched the video, Ms. Stevens, was there anything that you saw? I know it was outdated, but was there a piece of information that was missing since Chief Judge Lynn said they're redoing it that you think should be in there?
I don't remember anything missing, but I just remember some of the comments in terms of the female jurors were probably coming from home, not working, so it just seemed very dated.
Good, thank you. Yes. Mr. Halen?
Yes, I was a juror on Judge Hoffman's court. They did an excellent job of expediting the whole process. The one comment I can make is the vetting process. Going through choosing your jurors. It seems to me that process takes a great deal of time, just vetting out all the people who really don't want to be there. If they don't want to be there, something needs to be looked at. Some type of system developed, or process developed, where you don't have to listen to them for 15 or 20 minutes trying to do it. So if we can work on that, it'll be a better system for everyone.
Do you have any suggestions for judges when they look at a panel and you can tell there are people that really just don't want to be there? You did not want to be there? Okay. But how what can a judge do with those jurors that they know they really don't have a legal reason to get out of jury duty, but they really don't want to be there? What would you recommend to a judge?
Maybe you open it up. If people who don't are trying to get out of it, you entertain talking to them. Why? Get them fixed. Okay. They'll readily admit to you if you don't harm them in some way or fine them in some way that they don't want to be there. And they're thinking of ways to get out of jury duty. You don't want them either. So why force the process? Why do that? And you're putting that panel through the aggravation of having to listen to those arguments. And I think you know who really does not want to serve that day. So
Right. Okay.
I could go on, but you have others to talk to.
Thank you. Yes. Ms. Stepp?
Well, I enjoyed that they do allow you to reschedule now. I don't know if that was always an option, but the first day I was summoned, I wasn't able to come, so the next time I was. So I enjoyed being able to reschedule for when it was more convenient. On the other hand of that, I did have a very negative feeling towards jury duty. I didn't want to go. I thought it was a hassle. After now serving, I thought it was pretty enjoyable. It was interesting. I'm glad that I did have the experience. I didn't really see anything major that I thought needed improvement. I was in Judge Hoffman's court. He did a great job explaining and making sure we all knew what was going to happen and kind of what the terms meant and things like that. So I had an enjoyable experience.
For someone that did not want to be there in the beginning, can you tell the judges, is there anything that happened that sort of turned the corner for you, that you said, you know, now I'm okay being here?
I think it was a lot of the judge's attitude towards it. He was very kind of laid back and just, you know, here's what's going to happen. We talked about lunch, and he just made it more, you know, enjoyable, more of a, you know, like he appreciated us being there instead of it being a job or a hassle.
Good.
Our studies indicate that almost everyone who actually serves on a jury likes the experience. Now, okay, which of you, just to confirm that, how many of you would like to do it again? Okay, well, would anyone not like to do it again? Okay, your turn to talk. So, why not?
Okay, well, can you hear me?
Put the mic right up to your mouth.
I served in a trial that took very, very long. It was more like 9 weeks in my head. So it took a chunk of time, and they served us very fast.
Can y'all hear her? Okay.
Too long. The trial lasted too long.
You got to speak in the mic, please.
It was just much too long for me. It took so much of my time. Now, I am retired, and I felt sorry for the other people in my jury who were working and had to work, you know, who were teachers, and they had.
Suppose we had a rule that every trial had to be done in 5 days. Would that be an improvement we should be talking about? Limiting the time length of the trial.
I don't know if it's a Procrustean bad, because some trials really are more involved and more complex. It's a conundrum. I really don't know what the answer to that is, because I served also in a pretty complex case. It was a, I guess I can't even say, but it was a.
Most of the people who dislike jury service don't serve, actually. They are summoned, they come down, and they are not selected. Do you know, what could we do, what could the lawyers and judges do to make it a better experience for those who report to jury duty, but are not selected?
I don't know. Actually, I'm not going to say I did not enjoy being in the jury. I learned so much. It was just that if you ask me, would you want to do it again? I think once is enough for that. If that's fair. It was like getting my, you know, it was a very complex case, and the defense was wonderful. It was like going to a Broadway show every day. It was wonderful. It was a great show, but it was just too much time.
Ms. Starks, I have a question. Now, since you were the actual juror on the case, looking back, did it really need to take 9 weeks? Or in your head, did you think, wow, this should have been cut to 3 weeks, or the judge wasted too much time?
It did not have to be that long. I think the law of diminishing returns, at a certain point, you know, I think we got the message.
Okay.
We know what the playbook was or is, and we got it, you know, and they didn't have to drag it on and on and on. That's what I'm left.
How many of you thought the lawyers were too repetitive? Okay. Do you have any ideas how we could eliminate that, other than the judges giving the lawyers, well, you each get 3 days, you each get a day, or anything like that? Go ahead, Ms. Pulaski.
In the jury that I sat on, neither lawyer was as prepared as they could have been. And so they tended to cover over the same, you know, few dozen questions, approaching it at a different way, trying to get a different answer, and it really made it longer than it had to be. And so I think if the lawyers were prepared well and had their questions lined out, they wouldn't have to ask the same question 3 or 4 or 5 times in order to get their point across.
Ms. Pulaski, I have a question. If you, on your jury where you didn't feel like the lawyers were as prepared as they should have been, if there had been an evaluation box
where you could rate the lawyers, like after the opening or across? Would you have felt comfortable being honest and writing a note saying, I feel like these lawyers are not prepared?
Absolutely. And, you know, to the point where I even considered after the trial, you know, and I decided it wasn't appropriate, but gosh, why not reach out to that attorney and say, you know, if you'd have done this differently, you'd have had a different, perhaps, outcome.
Do you think it'd be a good idea to have evaluation for the judges, for the lawyers in the jury room? Okay.
Were any of you in your trial allowed to ask questions of the witnesses? On a piece of paper. I mean, you couldn't ask them, but you could write down the question after the witness took the stand, and the judge would give them to the lawyers, and the question would be asked. Did you had experience? So the rest of you did not have the opportunity. You had the opportunity.
No, but somebody else. There was questions asked within my jurors. Yeah, they did ask questions, and they were responded to.
Are there any of you that would have liked the opportunity during trial to have been able to write questions, hand them into the judge, and then the questions would be asked to the witnesses? That's one of the innovations we are studying to improve jury trials. Let the jurors ask questions. And the question is, would you find that useful or not? Anyone have any thoughts about that?
Mr. Youngblood, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, I thought we were.
Speak in the mic.
Okay. Yeah, I thought we was in a highly technological trial, and I thought that to ask the expert witnesses would have been more beneficial if we could ask them, because it was a long drawn out trial, and the same questions were repetitive every time. Like a couple of them, like agile and waterfall. It was always brought up every time they asked a witness a question. So if we could ask the witness a question, it would have been better. And Judge Hoffman did a great job with the case. I mean, he explained it to us, and then he explained, you know, he stopped the lawyers, had discussions with them. It was mediated really good. So as far as that process.
Great. Mr. Russell? Yes. Can you help us out?
I don't know about that.
Tell us how to do a better job?
But the only thing I would do differently, excuse me, is the not constant, but the interruptions when they would come in from behind the bench for just a moment, not anybody involved in the case, and speak to the judge for a moment. And then it just kind of interrupted the flow of the trial. And then you'd see the jurors kind of losing interest and all. And it seems to me with the judge, some of them have 2 and 3 computers at their bench. They could get the message that this person that comes into the courtroom, they can get the message portrayed that way and answer it without interrupting the court. That's the only thing I know. I mean, Judge Hoffman did a great job. We interrupted the trial for a wedding. Yeah, are you the only judge here? But yeah, we did break up the trial for a wedding. That was kind of cool, broke the monotony. But it's the constant when the guy comes in from behind the bench and he whispers to the judge, and it just kind of interrupts the process. Just seems to me it can be done over the computers. Other than that, it was great. I've been on 4 juries. Juror for hire, anyone? Professional. Hit them with the Hoff.
Did any of you feel you were, I don't know, sometimes judges ask the jury to leave the courtroom while they're talking to the lawyers? And I've heard jurors complain about that. I've heard other jurors complain even when there's a sidebar conference, when the lawyers go up on the side of the bench where you can't hear it as a juror and talk to the judge. Did that bother anyone? Or you were all fine with that? The interruptions were not bothersome to you? Go ahead.
Actually, the interruptions were pretty good because it was a long, drawn-out child, and when he talked when he interrupted or they went out to the sidebar, we got a break and got to stand up.
So they actually helped.
Yes.
It looked more like a TV show at
Typically in Texas, in most places, the judge gives you instructions in the law after you hear everything. Did any of you get instructions at the beginning of the case?
Judge,
Actually, on what the elements, what you were going to decide. Did anyone get preliminary instructions on the substance of what you were going to decide?
Judge Hoffman gave us that before. He was very explicit. And he stood up and gave us the whole information of what we needed.
Does anyone think it would have been helpful to have had better instructions at the beginning that would have helped you decide the case if they had told you at the beginning what to look for?
Well, I'm with I was in Judge Hoffman as well. You really couldn't get any better because he explained everything to you right there. And as far as the sidebar thing, we didn't have that because everybody went out. He took everybody out of instead of the jury leaving, they all left. So we never had to leave out for that.
Just say something else about Judge Hoffman.
This is like a political commercial.
He needs to be on the stage for comedians because in the middle of the trial, he said, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. This guy's a comedian.
Let me ask you a question about jury selection. When the lawyers are questioning you before you are selected, did anyone think the questioning was too personal? Did that bother anyone? Or too repetitive?
It's repetitive.
Repetitive. Yeah, because they asked the same thing over and over again, and then they would drill certain people over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Did any of you think that you had something that might have been relevant that the lawyers did not find out about?
Yes.
Who was that? Me. Yes, could you, don't tell us in particular, just kind of, there were things that you thought were not.
Right. My background was very applicable to the case, and I was shocked when I was called on the jury because of my background. My background would lean toward one party more so than the other. And it was, even though it was disclosed on the forms that we filled out before we ever went to jury duty, it was never asked.
I have a question about that. You know, people always say you're supposed to put aside your personal and what you know and base it on the evidence.
And
in your heart of hearts, could you really take your work and your personal and put it aside and not use it to judge the case?
Yes.
Okay.
That was not difficult for me. It might be difficult for somebody else. But like I said, I was very surprised because of my background that I was even selected as a juror.
Did everybody get to speak so far? How are we doing on time for the next panel?
I think it's time to get the next panel up.
Well, thank you.
Thank
Y'all
you
have been
very
wonderful.
much.
Thank you.
Yeah, the rest. You all have, as you're coming up, you all have heard the last panel. And so, did anyone hear anything they have reactions to? Tell us have a seat and tell us, any of you, who wants to begin, what you would do to improve the jury trial. If you had one thing to pick, what would you pick? And let us have them all. In Houston, it was parking, by the way. Go ahead.
Ms. Mike.
Ms. Patterson.
One of the things that I think that would improve making people want to be here is pay for their lunch if they have to stay here and pay for their parking, not discount parking. Because a lot of people that maybe ride the bus may not have money for lunch. So that's what I'm looking at. And the ones who don't ride the bus, they may have just spent their last on gas, and then they have to pay for parking. So I'm just looking at maybe changing that.
Anyone else have any particular improvements that they want to suggest? Go ahead. Yes, Mr. Stockton.
In my trial, I understand that the jury instructions and the form that we had to fill out was finalized at the very last minute. But I feel like someone should have read through it first because it was very poorly written. I mean, as someone who's, I guess, a grammar Nazi, it contradicted itself. It sent you, if you answer yes here, then don't answer any further questions. Oh, but really, you do have to answer further questions. Or if you answered no here, then still answer these questions. We spent more time figuring out what we were supposed to do with these instructions because it just seemed like random words thrown together at the very last minute. So I felt like if someone had taken an extra 5 minutes and just had someone who didn't write them actually read them for making sense.
Mr. Stockton, did each of the jurors in your case get a copy of the instructions, or was there only one copy sent back?
We each received a copy.
You each received a copy, so you were able to read your own copies in the jury room?
That's correct.
How long did the jurors spend in the jury room in your case reading the instructions before they began discussing the evidence?
We took a few minutes to get settled and to go through the questions and come up with what we thought before we started discussing as a group. But like I said, a lot of our time was spent getting everyone on the same page with what the question really asked.
Did anyone here, you heard the question we put to the other panel, who here would not like to do it again? Let me see if there are any of you who would not say that you don't want to be a juror again. So I take it the rest of you would be fine with being a juror again. It was not a bad experience for you. It was a good experience, which corresponds with what we are learning when we ask jurors around the country who have served. In the same question, I mean, you may have friends who were called and were not selected. And when you go online and Google jury duty, you get these YouTube skits and videos about how you get out of jury duty, right? Some of you may have looked at those before you went to the courthouse. So my question to you is, the jury is getting a bad rap from those people who don't serve. Do you have any ideas what we could do to make it better for those people? Yes, ma'am.
Maybe announce that the court doesn't start right at 8 o'clock. Some people are afraid, thinking I have to drive to downtown and, be in all the traffic. But, the jury usually doesn't begin till 9:30.
Okay, the timing of when you have to come there.
Yes.
Well, that brings to mind another question. One of the innovations I'm hearing are used in some places in the country are the jury service itself. The courts are holding court from 8 in the morning to like 1:30 in the afternoon. You don't have a lunch break. There are 2 15-minute coffee breaks, but you're free in the afternoon. You serve on the jury, but your afternoons are free. Did any of you serve a kind of a different schedule here in Dallas? Would that have appealed to you, some schedule like that? It would?
I think so. We ran all day long for 4 days, I believe. And as someone who's an independent contractor and needs time during business hours to get things done, I was spending my entire lunch break just trying to catch up on emails and phone calls and things. So I think having, your own time during the afternoon, when still have access to business hours with people you need to talk to would be helpful.
Would you do that even if it meant the trial was going to be a lot longer? Would you rather have that afternoon break, or would you just say, hey, let's get it over with, get me in and out?
That's a good question. I think not having the option when I served, that if I was just told that we were going to run till 1:30 every day, I wouldn't have known the difference. I would be more apt to, take a few more breaks and go all day long and have a lunch break than to just stretch it out even more days, because then I lose, I've effectively lost more days.
Doing your email raises another question. Judges in this country are very concerned today about jurors using the internet, the web, to help them understand the case, either research, and they almost all give you instructions at the beginning of the case. You can do your email, you can make cell phone calls, but you are not to go home at night or during the day and look up on the internet the parties or the case or anything about the case. Which seems to me, I know with my grandchildren and my wife sometimes, that would be an impossible instruction to follow. It's a very difficult instruction. We are so addicted to using our devices, to asking Siri or Googling something. So I know you all follow the judge's instructions, but do you suspect that most jurors follow the instructions, or do you suspect that there are jurors that don't follow the instructions? Anyone have any ideas on that? Yes, sir.
I suspect that some jurors are, you get curious when they tell you not to do it. That makes you want to go do it, or just to look it up and see what they don't want you to see. But in my case, we did wait till after everything was over, the trial was over. We were able to talk to the lawyers, where he disclosed that there was another pending case or whatever, that if we would have seen that, it could have leaned us to plead with the defendant in that case or whatever.
Anyone else was anyone tempted to use the internet for extracurricular reasons?
I'll admit I was tempted. I'm a researcher, something pops in my head, I'm automatically on the internet looking it up. But I was so paranoid about doing anything wrong.
Case is over, okay? It's perfectly fine after the case is over and you are discharged and return your verdict to look at whatever you want to look at or to talk to whomever you want. Did anyone learn anything after the case was over, either by going on the internet or by talking to lawyers? You just indicated there was one thing you learned that did not come out during the trial that you think would have been useful had it come out during the trial. Anyone have an experience like that?
The case had started to get juicy toward the end, if you know what I mean. And there were lots of conversations in the hall with the attorneys and the judge about what could be asked and what couldn't, what could be brought in. And so we were all getting real curious. I likened it to, everyone's watching this new TV show, but we can't talk about it, and you can't look up anything about it. But it's really good, and you're riveted. But the defendant's attorney, as soon as we were done, he said, I believe you made the right decision, and this, there's other things going on if you just Google it. And so I think most of us probably did, and there was a lot more information that I can understand both sides. Maybe we should have known about it, but on the other hand, it would have really prejudiced us.
Okay.
I have a question. If you walk into a hospital today, there's a patient's Bill of Rights, what you as a patient have a right to do. If you were given the task to build a juror's Bill of Rights that would go in the jury room, what should these judges and lawyers put in this, what your rights are as jurors? Since you've actually been jurors, maybe you can help us with that.
In addition to better parking, more donuts, free lunch, what other things would you like? And again, focus on some of the things that are being talked about. Let me just tell you some. Is the ability to ask questions. So I haven't asked this panel whether any of you had that ability to ask questions, but some jurors would like the ability to ask questions. Another thing that I've heard mentioned is that some jurors, can you discuss the evidence before you deliberate at the end of the case? In Texas, you were instructed you're not to You're not to have a discussion about the evidence until the end of the case when everyone's together deliberating. Would it have been helpful when you're in breaks at lunch and all together in the jury room to have been able to talk? That last witness was a lying scumbag, or that was very impressive. You know, whatever people talk, I think people have those thoughts. Would that have been helpful to you?
Mr. Martin, I think you wanted to say something.
I just wanted to mention that, you know, when you asked the first panel about whether they wanted to be jurors or not and deciding what you want to put up on a wall or whatever, to me, and I don't know if it's possible or not, is when you have that original questionnaire of do you want to be I mean, I know you want a jury to be as random as possible, but and folks do want to serve and do their duty to serve on juries, but I don't believe I've ever seen that question in the jury part of the thing that and I don't even know if you can ask that. Would you be happy to serve on a jury today? And I think if there was a way that you could possibly fit that into the system, that you might be able to even cut down on the amount of jurors that you have to bring down at a time, because you'd have more folks who would actually be interested, or the many jurors who are sitting in that third row who will never get asked a question or get picked, who actually came down there that day, you know, maybe hoping they would serve on a juror. If there's a way to do that, and I don't know if you can do that without randomly, you know, and still keep it random in that case, but that's a question for you.
Well, some have suggested that we might be able to select a jury completely by the internet. You receive a summons by email, you fill out a questionnaire on the internet, including any excuses you might have that you can't serve, a wedding, a trip planned somewhere, school, and you're not bothered again until you come down to actually serve. But some judges have said they don't want to do that because they think it invades the jury's privacy. What would you think about that? Filling out a detailed questionnaire, enough so that the lawyers get in advance the same information that you give them orally when you are being questioned by the lawyers in the courtroom. Anyone have any reaction to that?
I wouldn't say it's invading your privacy, since you're going to have to fill it out once you get there anyway. I personally would have liked it better if you could just do that online beforehand. Like, get rid of coming and reporting to the central jury room altogether, and basically like assign you to a court beforehand, fill everything out, and then basically you don't come down until you know you're on a jury. I think that would have taken out a whole day.
All right, Ms. Jack, you're right. And let me ask you this. Suppose if I had your name in advance, okay, just your name as a lawyer, I could find out virtually everything there is to find out about you on the internet by researching you. You know, I look at Facebook, I look at your social media things. I can't, you know, under false pretenses befriend you. But what's out there publicly, and there's a lot of information publicly, where you live, how much your home costs, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, I mean, a tremendous amount. We all have that information in public. Would that offend anyone, that your privacy is being invaded, to know that the lawyers are doing that kind of research on you, which is permitted today?
Yeah, personally, it wouldn't bother me. And if I put it out there, then at least I feel like I'm savvy enough that the stuff that's out there is stuff I'm okay people knowing. And especially for this purpose, it wouldn't bother me. That's probably going to be a person-by-person answer.
Ms. Schiffman, let me ask you about, and I'll ask you all to comment about the lawyer's use of technology in the courtroom, whether it be PowerPoint or some kind of video or whatever they're doing in the courtroom with a screen and a projector. Was that done in your case?
Yes, we had a screen and a scene of the accident that happened, or where the accident happened. And the attorneys showed us who was doing what, where, et cetera, et cetera. Unfortunately, I was in a place in the jury where I really couldn't see it well. And so I had difficulty with the first part of the trial. But I told the bailiff, who could not have been nicer, and that was remedied. But I did miss the first part of it, of the discussion.
Anyone else have any comments on the lawyer's use of technology? Was there too much, not enough?
Well, myself, I'm pretty tech savvy, so that and it gave me a hands-on experience, and I could actually see what was being talked about, because you don't always understand everything verbally. But like you said, it can be too much if you overdo it. If you have too many projectors, too many demonstrative exhibits, it can kind of get away from you, because they had a few technical issues in the case where we had to stop for a second and get everything back going, get the electronics back going. So
you have to talk and pull it right up to your face.
Yeah, I was just saying, okay, there it is.
That's fine, you can keep it out too.
That it can get out of hand at times if they don't keep up with, because our trial had to stop for just maybe 10 to 15 minutes so they could get the electronics back going and the projector back running. So just don't have too much, just have enough where you can control it and where we can stay focused.
Anyone else have comment on the technology? Any ideas? Yes.
My comment would be that to continue to see the same technology or same document over and over and over. I was in a 3-week trial, and I thought that was just too much. You see the same one every other day. They put that same one back up there, the same email. I think it would have cut the trial down a lot quicker if we could just do it once, and both sides did their argument on that one document, and before they went to another. It just would have helped out to me than to keep putting that same, you soon kind of know what exhibit 42 is, an exhibit, So you're like, okay, we know that.
Let me ask you about another thing. How many were in a case where there were expert witnesses? Almost all of you had expert witnesses in the case. Did you find that having experts was helpful, or did the experts kind of cancel each other out? What was your reaction to expert witnesses?
Our experts canceled each other out. We had one at one extreme and one at the other. I'm thankful that we had a jury that says, you know what, we're just going to have to figure it out ourselves, because we knew that we had to do the facts and not listen to either our attorneys. One was one extreme, one was the other. So we really had to deliberate and, really try and look at the facts to see
some people who have criticized the jury system have said that the problem with jurors, as opposed to trained judges, is jurors get wowed by the one expert or another, the side that can hire the most articulate and eloquent expert. Same issue, same criticism is made of lawyers. The jurors get, the side with the best lawyer wins. Who has a reaction to that? Yes, go ahead, Ms. Harris.
When I went into the trial, I see 2 attorneys, or maybe one was an assistant, and they're big guys all dressed up. Then you see this one little attorney, short, bald-headed, and you think, oh, the man never stands a chance. So you're already kind of thinking they're gonna get him. Well, the outcome is the little bald-headed guy ends up winning. So, you never underestimate just because these are the best dressed, nice looking, that they're the go-getters. So, I was like, when I first walked in there, I said, oh, he doesn't stand a chance. He doesn't have a helper. His PowerPoint presentations aren't that great, but, he put on a big fight, so.
All right.
I think we're about, well.
Yes, ma'am. What was your... How about your reaction to the lawyers? How much did the eloquence of the lawyers or expert witness affect your decision? You're going to have to speak right, put it right up to your mouth. Right.
I did not have any expert witnesses for our case.
How about the
but
lawyer?
Sometimes I completely agree with what Ms. Harris said. The appearances does have a bearing on our jurors' mind.
It did in your case.
It sure did. At the same time, too, we looked at the presentation between both the parties and made it, I believe we made a good decision in the end.
Do any of you think that the lawyers were so unevenly matched that it may have affected the outcome. No one had that experience.
No, I did not have that experience, but I must say, and this is an important point, especially since we have judges and lawyers here, it's very important that you keep, that have to be a courtroom etiquette or, where the attorneys are prepared, and your dress. That makes a big difference on what you look like, how you present yourself on a daily basis. It does make a difference to the jurors.
I want to thank you all for coming and sharing with us your views. Thank you. Thank you very much. And for those here and those in the audience, if you think of things that would help us, go on Twitter and use a hashtag Jurors Matter, which is our new way of keeping in touch with people, and tell us about your experience, or you can email us. You have the information, how to reach us. Anything that comes to mind that you did not get a chance to talk about, we want to hear it, because at each of these luncheons we learn something. Thank you very much for coming. If anyone wants to learn about the projects that the Civil Jury Project is undertaking, we have a stack of the status reports out there. And thank you very much for coming. We will be in contact with you by email shortly with that survey that we asked you to complete and send us. So I thank you very much for coming today.